Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg. Today, we're playing a little bit of Chronicle, RuneScape Legends, or yeah, that's what it's called. That's what it's called. Because I don't know, why not? This week on the channel. Well, this week on this channel was not particularly crazy. Pretty much as to be expected. I'm not sure how much longer Mangg Hunter is going to go on, because the bow is not that crazy fun. And so I've just been kind of thinking about what else to play, what to LP or whatever, and I don't know. It might be some horror stuff. We could do some horror stuff, I suppose, because it's that time of the year.
The time for thinking is almost over.
So, there's that, gosh, I don't even remember, the Evil Within? Is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called. Which came out a while back, and I've been holding off on playing that. So I might do an LP of that this month. I don't think that would be unwanted. There will, of course, be, there will be some VR horror stuff, but that will be probably a stream on, I want to say the 15th. It might not be a Saturday, because Saturday is usually kind of a work day for the Exploring series. So it might be a Friday.
Let's see what happens.
Fridays usually not great for streams, so maybe a Tuesday. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But there's a few VR horror things to do. Not an incredible amount. At least not that I know of, so they're probably not that great. But there's a few that I definitely know about that we'll take a look at. And I'm sure they'll be pretty scary, so that could be interesting, or not. Yeah, so that's kind of the plan. On the Exploring series, that channel is doing pretty well again this week. It definitely slowed down from the insanity of the other week, which was just nuts. But it's still holding steady. Overall, a much nice improvement over a couple weeks ago. You know, we're definitely doing pretty well. So that's great. And now, starting next Monday, for the month of October, every Monday we will be having an Exploring series video. So that should do good things for the channel. I'm excited to talk about Jack the Ripper and Halloween and dragons and Balrogs and oh boy.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens, shall we? This is not going to end well, is it? Yeah, so, all in all, good things. Okay, so yeah. Moving right along. There was no game night on Monday. So that's all that. And there's no game night tonight, so fairly light on gaming. Thursday, though, let's talk about Fate. So as I believe I mentioned, this was going to be the last week of Fate, most likely.
Let's see what happens.
I guess that's fine. Sure. Anyways. Do I have a cannonball in hand? I don't think I even do I?
Brilliant.
Oh, okay, I do. Alright, so Fate. So the plan was... Okay, so the original plan was, way back when, that we were going to do this big kind of heist experience. And it was going to be very well planned out and carefully thought. And we were going to hijack some vans and gas the inhabitants and take over the vans and slip into the facility and try and sneak into the portal and blow it up on the way out and blah blah. It was going to be very sneaky professional, as I like to do often. But Ziggy, of course, was unhappy with the state of the game, I suppose. And so he wanted to move things along and start his campaign, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
The final showdown. Exciting.
And well, I guess that's about it.
Let's see what happens.
So we decided, okay, we just got 400,000 bucks. We'll just hire every merc, every tough guy, whoever can hold a gun and wants to get paid. We'll hire everybody for like 1,000 grand each, and we'll just storm the facility, bum rush it, blow it all up, and take over the
Brilliant.
get through the portal, blow it, and do whatever. Just bum rush it. That's the plan.
Here, have these.
And so that's pretty much what we did. I put out a big APB across the Rebel radio, like, "Hey, we got money. We'll pay you. Bring your guns. Bring your family. Whatever. Whatever. We'll do this." And so they all showed up. We got not as many people as I thought, but a fair number. We got like, I don't know, 50 people or so, something like that. And so, you know, I rigged up a car. I filled it with explosives to the brim, like it could barely drive. And I'm like, okay, you guys go here, go here, go here. We'll flank it from all sides. And move in when you see the signal, and you'll know what the signal is. And so me and Ziggy, we drove up to the front gate, and basically I just shot the guy at the front door, at the little gatehouse. And then I just set the pedal, you know, locked the pedal down and drove the car straight into the lobby of the building as I rolled out. And yeah, that set off things. Nice big ol' explosion. And we basically just sweeped through. It was very easy. Like, it was basically a movie. Like, there's no way that Gug with his 2 pistols should be able to just go through and kill a bunch of soldiers. Like, military trained soldiers. But we did.
Let's see what happens.
I killed a bunch of people. Whole bunch of people. And the other guys, they were sweeping through with their machine guns, and we were just leveling this place. And in the in all the excitement, Wow. That's incredibly bold. Must have some sort of healing. Some shark shit, probably. Oh, stamina potion. Okay. In all the chaos, there was some creature that got released. Basically, it was like this black mass with like 12 arms, and it was just kind of some sort of Lovecraftian eldritch horror type thing. Blah, blah, blah. And, basically, long story short, it was somewhat of a walk in the park overall. Like, none of us really got injured much until the very end, in which the big black ball kind of snuck up on me and smacked me across the warehouse, and I broke my arm and my leg. So that was not great. But, wow, this is a big load of bullshit.
Let's see what happens.
Well, I lost this game.
Welcome. It is good to see you again.
And Ziggy ended up having like a light sword duel with some other guy, and I was sniping people. I was sniping like little technicians and shit, and we were having a ball of a time. And he's got 10 health. That's nuts. Basically, we ended up winning the day, and there were a lot of bullets spent, and I threw some explosives down, and we jumped through the portal to God knows where, and we blew it up behind us in a big old explosion. We can never return, and that's how it ended.
Let's see what happens.
And, yeah, so it's somewhat reinforced our thought. I don't know. It was too easy, right? It was just too simple. And not that things should be always incredibly difficult, but that's part of the appeal of gaming, right? It's just there's some semblance of challenge. Well, that'll do it. I could have really boned him over, but I'm playing the wrong deck. So, I don't know. It was okay. It was an okay climax. Not that he knew it was the end of the campaign, but it was. And so right after we finished, he started talking about advancement and like milestones and like, moving our characters along. He's like, oh, I got this whole new world to make, and it's just like, yeah, sure, because he didn't know. Ziggy and I knew what was going on, but he didn't know, and Ziggy really needed to tell him, and so he finally, of course, let him in on the secret. There's a big old pile of shit.
Let's see what happens.
Okay. So, I still like Fate. I think Fate still has promise. Maybe not in his hands. Maybe in some other setting, some other situation. Who knows? But I still Still believe in it. Okay, so Ziggy's campaign. So we're moving back to 4th edition D&D, which does not get a lot of respect, but it is... How do you... Did he not plan that out? That seems like... That's odd.
I have no patience for failure.
4th edition D, which doesn't get a lot of respect, but I like. I'm comfortable with it. I know how it works. It's you can min-max a skill, and you have all these different powers, which add a lot of out-of-combat utility if you know what you're doing. And it's a good system. It gets too much hate. It's got its flaws, blah, blah, blah. It's hard to be killed, and healing is all out of whack, and blah, 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 but I like it. So, the setting, I still don't know that much about. He has yet to put out the setting document, but I'm sure he will sometime this week. It is underground. It's entirely underground. And there are 9 different kingdoms that are living underground. And basically he said that the closer you are to the surface, the wealthier you are, which I suppose makes sense.
A true master leads by example.
There are monsters all around the place. The further down you go, there are more monsters there are. And it's really just weak.
Let's see what happens.
And I don't know if he stated that we're starting in the 9th king, the lowest tier. I don't know where we're starting. You know, if we start in the 9th kingdom, it's... And, yeah, I know there's a mini-series called The 10th Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. It's funny every time I say 9th Kingdom. If you start in the, sucks to be you, bro. It's kind of a rags to riches story as you rise up towards the surface, whereas if you start on anywhere else, there's gotta be a real incentive for us to go down into the depths of scum and fight monsters and things like that, which I guess, you know, it's somewhat standard D&D procedure, so I guess that makes a moderate amount of sense.
Let's see what happens.
So I don't know exactly how we're starting, the situation in which we're starting. And, you know, there's the surface, which really nobody has ever been to. And the 99 point, you know, like the major religion is somehow associated with the surface. Again, these are questions that would be answered in the setting document, so I don't know all the answers to these. But, you know, people fear and somewhat worship the surface, or they think some sort of saving entity comes from the surface. I don't know how it all works. And so I got these details, and I thought about the character I wanted to play. You know, I've been looking to play Frederick Zoller for a while. Just the real bluff master. I've been itching for that somewhat. And I decided against it because this group of guys, they're still somewhat new to role-playing. They still somewhat need guidance. And so a lot of my characters are just not conducive to that kind of, you know, They just...
Let's see what happens.
They're a bit lone wolves, or not exactly good characters, as in more neutral or chaotic neutral, and they tend to just be entertaining for me, and they need something a bit more helpful than that. So I thought about just doing Artemis, because it's such a good standby character. It's like, oh yeah, just be Artemis. You know, he's generally always very helpful to a group. He's not really a lone wolf, and he'll do what needs to be done.
Brilliant.
And I brought that up to Ziggy.
Brilliant.
And he said something like, you know, I always like new characters. I always like to see new characters. But he admitted that Artemis was a decent choice for this group, for helping them out. And so I thought on what he said. And I really should get rid of this card. Click on this.
Let's see what happens.
And I decided, this is the character I'm going to play, I'm going to be Ovum. Now, if you know anything about my past, you might say Ovum's not really a great choice, all things considered. Fun character, but in this situation that I just described, probably not great. But, aha. I'm going to be doing Old Man Ovum. So this is Ovum after living for an indeterminate number of years. I like to think an unnaturally long life for him at this point in time. He's been around, he was old when you were young, basically. What is this guy doing? And so he has, he's laid down the sword. He laid down the sword a while ago.
The final showdown. Exciting.
Okay, that's probably pretty good. And then it's better to just do this. Okay, we'll see how he does.
Let's see what happens.
So he laid down the sword a while ago. He is no longer an Avenger with a big great sword, just cleaving foes in half. That is a long, long time ago. In fact, his strength now is 8, so he is quite old. And instead, he is an Invoker, which is basically the spellcaster version of an Avenger. And I thought that was a really interesting transition for a character, to go from this young, just muscle-bound, sword-swinging, you know, oath-spouting warrior of a god, to this kind of old, calmer, wiser individual that is still zealous, I guess, but in a much different manner. And so he hasn't really, you know, he hasn't really been on a crusade, I guess. He hasn't been crusading for a while. He doesn't go, you know, the young Ovum went through the monster caverns and was just clearing out shop, and, you know, he was doing Ovum things for much of his life, of course. How could he not? And then time wore on, and you know, Ovum as a character, no matter what the setting is, no matter what the system is, it doesn't matter. Ovum, if he's there, he always believes in Artemis. No matter how it is, no matter whether Artemis is actually a deity, whether he never existed, you know, in Shadowrun, Artemis is just like an AI, whatever, he believes in Artemis. And so Young Man Ovum, of course, is always spouting, you know, trying to convince people of Artemis and trying to convert them and all that kind of stuff. If you've heard me talk about Ovum before, I'm sure you get the idea. Old Man Ovum has, at this point in his life, come to terms with the idea that he can't really convert anyone. In a way, Old Man Ovum, you know, if... In a setting, in a game, if Ovum becomes Old Man Ovum, in some ways, he has basically failed at being Ovum. So it's an interesting character. Because he didn't die, you know, he didn't die as like a martyr or anything like that in the pursuit of righteousness or anything like that. He didn't try and kill a kraken or anything like that and die, or, you know, he didn't do anything. He has survived. And he has kind of resigned himself a bit. You know, he's put down the sword, he's grown old, he no longer spouts shouts of righteous justice and, you know, indignation and things like that. He's kind of just mellowed out a little bit. You know, if you piss him off, well, yeah, okay, there's gonna be some shit. And generally, I think, this is my thought, that if Old Man Ovum is brought into a campaign, it's for a reason. You know, something kind of ignites that inner spark in him that has always kind of existed, and he gets dragged back into a situation, and in some ways because that is who he is, and that will never change, but also in some ways to kind of relive his glory days, I guess. Ovum is not generally that human, I guess. I don't generally think of him as that in that much of human terms, but a little bit. Like, he's a bit of a sadder individual overall, but he also has a lot of wisdom over his younger counterpart. So I don't know how he's going to be brought into this campaign. I don't know what's going to happen that reignites that spark, but he's going to come in. He's going to be kind of the old wise and mentor that, you know, in a lot of ways, it's a completely different character than Young Man Ovum, but it also interests me a lot, because it's a very kind of quiet fervency of religion and belief and duty and things like that. So it's an interesting character. I'm excited to try him out. Because here's the thing with 4th edition. You know, I like 4th edition. I like it a lot. But I like it because of the opportunities it provides for problem solving, which is probably the main reason that I like playing Artemis so much, especially in 4th edition, is the utility that a Scion, that a properly built Scion can provide for out of combat and in combat. It's a lot of fun for me. You know, all sorts of little tricks and tools and, you know, little gimmicks, and I love it. And so when I'm looking at 4th edition characters, that's kind of how I decide on things, is, you know, how much fun is this character for me to play as far as utility. And so that's why I really can't... I don't lean towards playing like a fighter or a ranger or just a rogue or something like that in 4th edition. Like, there's more to that. So I lean towards casters because they have gimmicks. They have fun tools. Or, I lean towards a vampire, Frederick Zoller, who has gimmicks and he has a bluff score of like 30 and, you know, all these kinds of things. And so that's its own kind of fun as well. And so I looked at... yeah, I like playing as Ovum for short bursts, a Young Man Ovum, because it's just a fun character to play as. But for a longer campaign, which we're hoping this is, I need something with a bit more longevity. You know, if I'm constantly switching characters, if I switch characters even once, it's a detriment to the overall campaign, I think. Because then it's just like, oh, you know, we're doing, you know, it's just, it weakens, I think, the overall campaign if anybody switches characters even once. So I want something that has some longevity, and I think Old Man Logan has more longevity than Young Man, and as an invoker, you know, at first I did kind of a min-max invoker, but then I realized, no, that's not what I'm about, so I got more some kind of utility, some kind of fun stuff. You know, he can summon an angel and shit like that, and as a feat, you know, I took a feat that has no min-max potential whatsoever, but utility, it is the best feat in the game as far as I'm concerned. It's called Wild Talent Master from the Dark Sun book, and basically it basically makes you a mini Scion, pretty much. So I often take that feat on a lot of different characters, just because it's a little piece of Artemis wherever I go. So yeah, I'm excited about it, because I'm not sure how, you know, on my scale, how good of a character Ovum is. Obviously, I like playing him, but I don't know how much others enjoy him, especially for a long amount of time. But I think Old Man Ovum has a bit more potential. Like, you know, like I said, he's not as critical, as judgmental as the Young Man. The Young Man, like, if you... I remember a situation where people were, like, we killed a bunch of orcs, and they were starting to, like, loot the bodies, and they were going to use, like, a shield or something like that an orc used, and Ovum was like, what the fuck? Like, it was just outrageous. It was blasphemy. Old Man Ovum would just be like, not that I want to lean him towards so apathetic, but I think, you know, his wisdom score is his highest thing, and I want to roleplay that a bit. You know, wisdom has its benefits. So anyways, I don't know if we're going to be starting that this Thursday. It could be next Thursday. Ziggy's still deciding. It could very well just be the following Thursday, but this coming Saturday, I'm not sure if I'm going to stream it. I might just talk about it on the next Hanging with Mangg, but this Saturday, the plan is that we're finally going to try out a role-playing game called Dread. Not Judge Dredd, D-R-E-A-D. This was featured on Tabletop during one of the seasons. It's a rules-light, very rules-light role-playing game, a horror role-playing game, in which, this is the real kind of key thing, conflict resolution is done using a Jenga tower. Haha, yeah. So instead of rolling dice or anything like that, whenever you would come to a situation where you would normally, like, roll a skill or you know, whatever, you instead have to pull a piece from a Jenga tower. And for character creation, it's very free form somewhat. Basically, each character has a questionnaire. And so the questionnaire is, like, you know, basic stuff like, what is your job, what is your name, what do you look like? But then also there's, like, weirdly philosophical questions that you have to answer as the character. You know, like, what is your biggest phobia? Or like, one of them I saw that was really, like, why did your father abuse your mother but not you or your sister? And it's like, what? So the questions could be, like, all over the place, and there's like each, when you make your character, you have to answer like 15 of them or something like that as you make this character. And so some of those questions, I think, are really, like, to me, I mean, I haven't played or anything like that, but to me they seem kind of pointless overall. Because then, you know, for me, for an RPG, a character is a combination of talents and weaknesses. You know, basically just a system of pros and cons as with a personality. But, you know, mechanically, the personality almost never means anything. So I don't know how often that comes to play. And, you know, Dread, it's a horror game, so you're going to be in horror situations. And so, you know, if your character is like a med student, that, you know, that means in a situation in which you need to provide medical assistance or something like that, the character with medical knowledge would be better at it than one who is not. And so in the system of the Jenga tower, obviously, you know, it's not like a dice. You can't roll higher on a Jenga tower. So the way they vary it is either, you know, somebody that is good at something that another person is not, that person might not have to pull from the Jenga tower. Or the person that is bad at something might have to pull more than one from the Jenga tower. And so that's conflict resolution. And it's all based around this Jenga tower. And I feel like the people that made Dread, they were playing a Jenga game. And they probably realized how kind of tense it can get, especially as the tower is getting close to falling. And so they, you know, they put two and two together. And so basically, you know, as the session goes on, almost every Dread thing that I've heard of is a one-shot, but I guess you can carry characters over if they survive. So as the session goes on, it's meant to kind of mirror a horror movie. You know, when a horror movie starts, things are generally, you know, after kind of the open, after the opener where somebody usually dies, and you introduce the characters, things are generally pretty light. You know, things are fun, the character's usually happy in some way, and blah, 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 and you kind of get introduced to them. And then as the movie goes on and on and on, things get darker and darker and more desperate and more horrifying and blah, blah, blah. So, the Jenga tower somewhat represents this, because when the Jenga tower starts, it's very solid. You know, everything is in its proper place, everything is good. The first person that has to pull for something, it's like, this is easy. But if you've never played Jenga, you probably won't get this. Also, if you have no knowledge of Jenga, that's impressive, I will say that. But as the Jenga tower, you know, continues to move on, and the session moves on, and more people are pulling from it as they do things, and blah, 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 it gets more precarious. And eventually, someone's going to pull from the Jenga tower, and it will not survive the pull, and the Jenga tower will fall. And the character that player is playing will not survive the fall. So whenever the Jenga tower falls or collapses, a character gets removed. Whether it's through death, which is the most common, or insanity, or whatever kind of horrifying thing you can come up with. And this is the most interesting thing to me, because in a horror movie, very rarely do you get like an influx of new characters. Occasionally you'll get like a bumbling cop or some sort of character shows up that is pretty much meant to give the smallest glimpse of hope to the other characters, but then they die. That's kind of the cliche. But obviously you don't want to do that in Dread, because it just wouldn't work. So it's a game with character elimination, player elimination. You know, when your character dies, you're out. You're sitting there and you're just listening. So it's an interesting balance of, you know, as the DM, you have no control over the tower whatsoever. You're not supposed to even sit near it. Nothing. You can't touch it. I mean, you could, I guess, but don't touch it. And so if a player pulls from it and they're really shit at Jenga or something, and they knock it over, they're done. You can do something that I saw where you can basically have them be doomed, where they can no longer ever pull from the Jenga tower, and they basically are just awaiting their death. Like, they are going to die at some point, because they cannot pull from the thing. And so a player can refuse to pull from the thing at any time. You know, you can say, okay, pull from the thing, and you say, no, I'm not doing it, because you don't want to risk knocking over the Jenga tower. But if you refuse to pull, or you back out of the pull, you automatically fail whatever your character's trying to do. So if you can never pull, you're going to be failing everything that you attempt to do that requires any modicum of skill. So yeah, you're probably going to die at some point. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to try it out. We're going to have a group of 6 of us, so there's going to be 5 players. None of us have ever played it before. I don't know how it's going to go. I'm going to do the pre-written one, like the basic one that they recommend. Beneath the Full Moon, I think it's called. It's basically just a werewolf scenario out in the woods. And so they have to balance, like, survival. They actually have to worry about survival, like basic survival, because they're, like, lost in the woods. And there's, like, rapids and stuff like that, and mountains and things. They have to deal with a guide. Their guide has been, like, maimed. So he's, like, moving in and out of consciousness. He's really worthless, but he's not, like, so worthless that they'll just be like, oh, he's dead anyways, whatever. You know, euthanasia might be an option that they reach for at some point, but there's, like, a moral thing. And then, of course, they have to deal with a fucking werewolf, so there's that as well. I'm really excited about it because I've heard about it for a while. It's always kind of intrigued me, but I've never owned a Jenga tower, and I was like, oh, I'd have to buy a Jenga tower and about this. But it's October. I was looking for events to do on, like, weekends, and I was like, you know what? Let's play Dread. Let's do it. So I'm really excited about it. I don't know if I'll stream it. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm excited about that. So okay. Maybe I'll be playing The Evil Within soon as a horror Let's Play. Other than that, kind of the usual stuff. Make sure to check out the Exploring series every Monday from the 10th onward of this month. There'll be a new video. The 15th or so, give or take, there will be a VR horror stream, which will, of course, also be uploaded to the channel. And that's about it. So, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.